My writing process has evolved over the years, but I'm always very much concerned with outlining and giving a shape to it before I dive in. Whenever I've tried to just take a run at it, I find myself writing myself into impossible corners and having to back up and rethink things. So I tend to think very much about structure and organization, and I do a lot of preliminary sketches and notes and put Post-its on the wall to figure out where certain scenes are before I actually dive in.
I don't do outlines. I don't plan where I'm going because I like to be surprised by what I'm writing. I love the greatest twist in the history of cinema, I would suggest humbly, is Darth Vader saying, "I'm your father." I love writing things when one character says something and you're like, "Whoa, that's a shock," and then you go that way. And I think outlines prevent that happening. And obviously, most people do them, and that's great. And if that works for you, then brilliant. But for me personally, I like to be surprised. And in order to do that, that can only come from listening to the characters.
They've become very real people to us. I mean, they're obviously versions of ourselves at some level. And we know where they want to go in life. We each have an instinct about our own characters, and I think we each have an instinct about each other's characters. Our daily routine for working is, when we're writing, is to write 5 days a week, sort of 10 till 5, and pretty much like a day job. And a lot of that time is spent mining the interiors of the characters. It's not necessarily physically writing, but we might spend 2 hours discussing the motivation of something.
People say write what you know, and I do think that usually, with some exceptions, people are strongest writing about a milieu that they understand. So, for instance, this is I think Woody Allen is uniquely brilliant at writing about the world he came from, and no one knows the nuances of that better than him. But by his own standards, I think he's quite clumsy when he tries to film about London.
When you're adapting a novel, you have to take into account, especially with a well-known work, what the audience remembers most from that book. You don't have to remain true to the actual structure of the book or to specific lines. You have to remain true to what people remember about the book. So there are going to be moments that stand out in their minds that they're waiting to see, the scenes that they expect.
Well, Marigold is a very free adaptation, and it got freer and freer. I mean, the book actually got reissued with a new title, and people reading it are slightly baffled as to, in the end, all we took from it is old people go to India, which is not to say that it's not a great book. It was a process of development, and the more people that read it that haven't read the book are like, why don't we change that and change that? And so gradually the book, because the longer the process of development, the likelihood is the further and further you'll get away from the book itself.
I learnt a lot during working on the thick of it about this process. Very nearly everybody who were the core actors were also writers. And I think that there's something about having that bit of your head that can stand back and look at the whole and understands it as a structure and as a beast that is very useful, particularly if you're going to use improvising. So really it's about story. I mean, I think story is the key to writing.
You do spend a lot of time by yourself when you're writing the first draft particularly, and I've gotten out of the habit of showing anyone anything before the first draft is done because I'm too paranoid about what they'll think of it. I won't even show my wife. When it is done, I try to send it off, and I've gotten better at not getting emotionally upset when the response is not, this is the best thing I've ever read in my life.
I think once something has worked, you can analyze it post the event, like you analyze a rally, a tennis rally, and explain why the two, combatants chose those shots at that time and why that worked. But I think you slowly learn what works and what doesn't. And I think with most things, again, the analogy with sport, the best way of learning is to watch someone who's really good at it. So watch stuff that you really like and respect, and you will imbibe some of that, and then you'll make it your own.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge with screenwriting because I can't spend page after page designing exactly the way a scene will look. That's the job of the director, that's the job of the production designers. I have to capture the actions and the tone and the rhythm of the scene.
I'm always on set for everything I write. I always have been. And people sort of like, that's weird that the writer's here. And you go, well, where else am I going to be? Like, I'm lonely at my desk. It's, you know, and this is why I do it, is to be here. You know, this is the good stuff. But conversely, when it's not, when they, you know, you walk into the bedroom of the character and you go, yeah, that's not what I thought. Or even when they cast someone, you go, really? That's, you know, that's tough, but I mean, that comes with those are the breaks, you know.
Listening, I think, for me has been really critical. I've worked with some brilliant script editors and some brilliant producers early on, and they have basically taught me the rules. And then, of course, those rules are there to be broken, but I think without understanding them, it's really hard.
Keep going. When I first started out, I had a post-it note stuck to my screen that said, nothing worthwhile is easy. So that when I got a rejection, I would say to myself, well, it's not supposed to be easy. It is supposed to be difficult.
The real job in getting into this business is sticking around long enough and continuing to get better and better at what you do. Because the truth is, if you write a great script, they'll find you. They're aching for good writers. So it's the ability to be ready when the door opens. It's not about which door you knock on first. It's about, yes, getting the job as an assistant, keeping yourself in there, continuing to work at it, and waiting. You will get your chance. And then the question is, are you ready?